Welcome to Jenesis Gems, a podcast for the advice community, where we explore the evolution of advice, brand and marketing, and leadership. I'm your host, Jenny Pearse. This season, we're looking at business through the lens of then, now, next, shining a light on where we've come from, what's driving us today, and where we're heading next. All, of course, with a marketing twist. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. Today I'm joined by Melody Edwards, Senior Financial Advisor at Evalesco Financial Services. She has a very long list of things that she also does alongside that. That's New South Wales State Chair for Inspire. She has been a finalist and won some awards, so we'll let Melody share some details around that. Melody brings so much heart and so much soul to everything she does. So I want to share her then now next story. Welcome, Melody. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jen. It's lovely to be here.
It's been a while, I must admit, but we're like ships in the night, perhaps, passing each other in the social news feeds, but that's okay. What I'd love to do right now is get you to share a little bit about Melody and what, your role is within Evalesco Financial.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm one of the senior financial advisors here, and also the aged care specialist. So, I do a lot of the aged care financial advice for our clients, and also anyone else who needs help in that space, which is definitely a growing area. And I've been with Evalesco now for it'll be is it 12 or 13 years this year? Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
probably
Time
up.
flies when you're having fun.
So a lot of my career growth was, and my personal development was sort of lined up with the business growth as well. So it was a really good environment to be involved with, and now I'm fortunate enough to sort of sit at the management level to help with the future growth of the business, and also helping develop the team as well.
Wow. A lot's changed since you and I first met. So, which gives me a good reason to A, have you on as a guest, and B, let's start talking about the then. You mentioned the 13 years. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about a little, what drew you to financial advice in the first place? I mean, I think it was 2008, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually had no background in finance or, business, economics, or any of those sort of typical subjects in my, schooling career. But I actually, like a lot of people, I think, fell into financial planning from just working in a financial planner's office. So I was very fortunate while I was finishing off my uni degree, which was in IT. Back then, yep, very. And that
I'm
was
sorry, you said IT?
yeah. I didn't know what I was going to do, but IT was the thing to do back then, so that's what I did, and that was my expectation, was to do something in that industry. But got my through fate or whatever it might be, was introduced into financial planning through actually a female financial advisor back then, which is quite rare at that time. And she was my first mentor in financial planning, and really encouraged me to consider financial planning as a career, and bringing my skill set to what she saw as a calling. So I inherited that passion, and from there, that's sort of where it all started.
I suppose that I love the concept of that financial advice, or being a financial planner is a calling. You either have, I guess, the dynamics, the personality traits, the intuition to be able to do the type of role that financial planning is, or not. I don't, which is why I'm not a financial planner and you are. We all have our set paths, which kind of, I guess, harks to, what was it like sitting in your first client appointment, your first client meeting? I mean, was it thrilling, terrifying? What was that feeling like?
I distinctly remember, and this client is still a client to this day. So, I was very fortunate. She was an existing client of the advisor that I was working with, and um, very, you know, comfort like um, patient and nurturing, I suppose, in that whole experience. Very cognizant of my nerves, and she was very quick to reassure me that I was doing well in the meeting. So I think that definitely helped having a very gentle first client experience to, or, while the training wheels are still on. I think doing it in practice is very different, obviously, from learning about the theory, and that, people skills and interpersonal, communication skills is so vital to be able to do that very well, to do that well. So that was my first takeaway, absolutely, from
Yeah.
experience.
Was obviously today you mentioned, you're a full service financial planner, including obviously your aged care expertise. Were you back then, given we're then, were you using a holistic approach back then, or is that something that you felt you matured into?
Yeah, it was a little bit, I I would say it would be sort of the beginnings or the grassroots of the concept of holistic planning back then.
Yeah.
It was still very much grounded in, super insurance investments, which was the core of the services we provided. But just naturally developing those relationships with clients and having sort of deeper and broader conversations, and just wanting to help as much as we could, that sort of was um, that built the idea of, okay, well, what else can we be doing and how else can we be helping and serving these clients?
Yeah. Was there a defining moment for you in those early days that you kind of just went, wow, this is actually what the impact of advice really looks like? It's changing someone's life. Or, was there a moment that you felt like, okay, I'm in it and this is right? You recognize the impact.
Yeah. Uh, I think there's a lot of those over the time, but f- um, very early on in when I suppose when I first started, one of the most impactful experiences for me, and it was around the time that I started with Evalesco as well. So that was in 2013. I joined Evalesco, and there was a new client that we were in the process of onboarding at that time. She had a previous advisor who, upon looking at the advice she received, didn't seem like she was invested appropriately for what she was trying to do.
Mm,
And so it was really a journey to uncover, okay, what is it that had happened through that experience for her, and then really advocate and fight for her, to be able to recoup some of that negative impact that advice had had
mm,
on her. And
mm.
it was and part of it was about she didn't want to, um, this is the goodness of her heart. This client, she didn't want to negatively impact his business and his career, by sort of putting any claims, or
Mm.
making a noise, or putting in a complaint. So for us, it was really around helping her be comfortable with, our approach around that. It was never about punishing or penalizing. It was really about educating, saying, look, this is what we believe.
Mm.
You should be in a much stronger position than you are. You shouldn't have to be worrying and stressing about your retirement, at a stage where, going back to work is no longer an option, or you don't have any other resources to rely on. So this is it. And so we want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're not suffering for as a result. And so
Mm.
we're really bringing her on on that journey, and then also with the aim to educate, the previous advisor as well, and say, look, this is this is where I think you should be addressing, and this is where we think, you could be improved.
Mm.
Um, and as a result of that, we actually did, back then it was FOS, the
Yeah.
financial advisement, and they did agree with us that, she got some compensation back as a result of that inappropriate advice. And from there, now she is, I've seen her through that sort of mid-stage retirement to now downsizing, moving into a retirement village, then moving into aged care, and now she's living in aged care. It's like she's to see how confident and comfortable and worry free she's been through all of those different stages, because we were her advocate, we were fighting for her, we were being able to apply good appropriate advice for what she should be doing. That itself has been very rewarding.
I mean, that's a real impact, when you can see the transition that she's had from the moment that she's, come in to meet with you, and, you've taken her on such an incredible journey. I guess, you know, over that time, I mean, you obviously, I mean, we all live in a bubble sometimes and think, oh, am I doing what I'm meant to be doing? Or am I absolutely not in the right place? I guess for you, those sort of experience would have reinforced that feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think as well, what I really find rewarding is that, not even though, yes, there's similarities across clients, everyone is then, has their own stories in their own, I guess the main character of their own story there. So
Yeah.
it's, it is it's such a, um, we have such a powerful impact, both good and bad. So I think being aware of that and being able to use that as the framework in which we, perform our duties and give our advice, I think that's really important to know that, what we do has such a big impact that we need to, treat it in that way.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned, obviously starting out you with your education around IT, which is
Yes.
a bit of a brain explosion, that one. But then again, given the technology that we have to deal with today, perhaps that was a good thing.
Yeah.
But then obviously you've had to go and do very specific education to suit the profession. And obviously and now you've received, you've obviously completed your aged care accreditation. But I mean, you mentioned that all the education under the sun, yes, that gives you what you need to be a financial planner, but it's those emotional, connections, that emotional intelligence that I think you just can't buy that. You've got to live the experience, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. And I think that's why I think I'm so passionate about women as financial advisors as well. And not to say that men aren't capable of it, but I think we, as women, have a lot of practice in building those relationships and talking about um, the deeper things that make that worry us, or that we want to aspire towards, and help relate to our clients in those ways. So bringing that and sort of meshing it with the more analytical tech
Mm.
related skills, I think is very powerful, and that's where we can
Well, I
shine.
mean, they're obviously the analysis and the strategic stuff has got to be there because that's ultimately why they're there to see you. But it's not really the reason why people come.
Yeah.
They don't sit down one day and just go, I need to go and see a money professional. They just suddenly go, I have a dire need and I need the right person to help me. And that is all about emotional decision making. The last thing that I would be thinking about is I need a piece of paper that tells me, that this amount of money is going here, this amount of money is going there. That's why I rely on the professional at hand to be able to tell me that,
Mm.
So
Yeah.
do you
And
think you mentioned a mentor, how important was that for you in the early days?
Absolutely pivotal, I think, especially in what it was like back then, where you didn't have a lot of women advisors. When you go to an event, uh, uh, back then, you would have seen a handful of women in the room, and a lot of them would have either been BDMs or support staff. Very few would actually be sitting in that advisor role.
Not a lead role.
That's right. And so having someone who, as an introduction into the industry, well, back then it was the industry, now profession,
Mm,
as to show that it was, possible, what that type of advisor could look like. It wasn't about sales or commissions or, how much, FUM you had to manage. It was, she brought a really human element to it, that was very different from what was sort of being the rhetoric that was around. So for me, that was key. If I, sort of saw the typical advisor role as, all about the numbers and how much, you could pull in, I probably wouldn't have bothered to go any further. And
yeah.
so that was really, really important. And then, off the back of that, when she was forced to retire early due to health reasons. And so
Mm,
that sort of triggered the move into Evalesco, where I started it and the sort of full advisor role at that point.
mm.
My second mentor was Jeff, and Jeff Thurrock, and he's
Yes.
been very, very pivotal around, in that second phase of sort of, I likened it to, she was kind of the foundation of my growth, and then he launched it off from there, and
Yeah.
was a big reason why I've progressed and grown in the way that I have.
He's a very lovely man. I had the opportunity to work with Jeff when he was the New South Wales state chair for the AFA, and yeah, I just loved his approach to everything. So it's nice to hear that he was able to support you so heavily in those it's certainly in those beginning days anyway. Um, so we're going to transition to now, and I'm interested. I hearing you talk about those early experiences and how they shaped your approach. From one of the things for me was that it feels very intentional, that everything you did, whilst you might not have always known the path forward, you it was an intentional approach. So I think that's something, as you come into now, that obviously working in as a senior advisor, all of those things, that has come to fruition for you. So how would you describe your approach to advice today?
I think it's still, in some ways, the main consistency is having the client at the core. So whenever we're looking at how we serve our clients and the advice that we provide, it's with always the mind of how can we improve on what we're doing, or how can we improve the outcomes? How do we get better value for them?
Mm,
And so through that, it's that developing of that holistic approach as well. So, tying in the lending piece. So we have an in-house mortgage broker. Then, estate planning is becoming, such a big core element as well, to make sure that the current buzzword of intergenerational wealth transfer
yes.
is it is, one of those things that gets thrown around, but it is such a big thing that clients are wanting to do, and not just when they pass away, but their living legacy as well. And
Oh,
so that
yes.
is really all the conversations we have, which you wouldn't for the traditional sort of scope of planning advice. And
Mm,
so
mm.
that's where I think, we're always on the lookout to, okay, this is the conversations we're having, and collaborating. How do we collaborate to make this a better experience, or a better outcome, or better value?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's very much, geared to the life needs of the client rather than just often the financial needs is such, it's just really so much just one piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
That's
So,
right.
we've touched on the fact that you've now got your aged care accreditation.
Mm.
What sort of, we've also talked about the fact that you've obviously helped a client transition from, a complex situation into aged care now. So was there a real motivation, or you felt, look, for me to be able to successfully care for my clients, I need to take on this extra accreditation? What was the sort of decision behind that?
Yeah, that pretty much in line with that as my clients have aged and, this situation came up more frequently. It really highlighted that, how complex it is and, the cost of getting it wrong. So to really feel confident in my ability to give my clients the most appropriate advice in that space. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
education and upskilling. And I think that's also been beyond aged care. It's also been the approach around, when never been stagnant on our capabilities or our knowledge. It's always thinking, okay, here's somewhere that I could learn more, or there's more to learn, and that we're not thinking that we're the experts in all things. It's, really that drive and that thirst to know and keep learning.
Definitely have an aging population. Of course, you and I are staying young, uh, but we definitely have an aging population. So, the demand is there. People need very specific advice, and it's definitely not advice that you can take on unless you're aware of all the circumstances. I noticed when I was doing my background check. You've also looked at, or you've also received a behavioral finance accreditation. So, what drove you to do that?
I think as well, because the human element is what attracts me most around financial planning, and financial advice, and humans are naturally flawed, as they say. We're not perfect, and we're not rational beings. And especially when things get, when anxiety ramps up or things get uncertain, and that's what we're trying to help our clients through these periods and transitions, and where anxiety and confidence is low, anxiety high, confidence low. And
Yeah.
so really understanding that behavioral element around decision making, around how people will default, and it's just human nature, but having a
Mm.
deeper understanding of that just helps to, you could give the best advice, but if a client isn't comfortable or isn't taking any action on that because of, you have to help them to bridge that, to
Yeah.
be able to, because the action is where the outcomes lie. And so being able to be effective in that space as much as possible, and that behavioral aspect, finance aspect really helps too.
Goodness gracious, you can have, a husband and wife, or, whatever, sitting at the table, and their brains work so completely differently. And in my circumstance, my brain would be going, let's plan the trip to, to so and so, and my husband would be saying, we need to replace the driveway. So I would say that mine's completely a rational decision. And he would say it's very irrational. So, and I'm sure you come across a lot of that scenario where, you've got to bring people together at the table.
Absolutely, yes,
Oh,
and yeah,
I'm
so
glad that's you.
I mean, that's the challenge, but it's also where the reward lies, so
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. But, as you say, we're irrational beings, and I think, look, often we can't see the roadblocks for ourselves. We need someone else to help us, get over them. So, more kudos to you, I must say. Let me change gears for a moment. So, I want to talk about Inspire. Obviously, it was a big part of my world for a very long period of time, both as a supporter and working with the AFA, but also when I became New South Wales State Chair. It was just a really defining moment for me, and such a rewarding experience. And just to see the I guess the safety net it provided for so many people. Um, you're deeply involved in the Inspire community. And I think that I'm pretty sure that's how I met you in the first
Mm.
place,
Yes.
was through the Inspire community. I remember Jeff would hustle everybody along.
That's
Come
it.
on, come on, like this, you got to go to the AFA events. And certainly Inspire was on that, list of things to do. So what does the Inspire community mean to you?
I think it's always been a community that was safe. It was, the complete antithesis of what you would go to another, event put on within financial services, where again you're outnumbered. Even to this day, we're still outnumbered, really, and so walking into a room filled with women in, they might have the journey might have looked a little different, but we're all there for the same reasons. And it's about that connection. It's about the support. It's about being comfortable to, to reach out to people and say, look, this is a challenge I'm facing. Have you come across it? How have you dealt with it? And
Mm.
just really helping build up each other, because we're not in it to, tear each other down, or, we all, there's, plenty of clients around, plenty of work around. We're not here to, poach. It's very much around how do we build each other up and get everyone sort of moving and progressing. And I think that's really wonderful, a really wonderful experience and an atmosphere to be in. So that has, I think from the first time that I walked into an Inspire event has been the feel that I've had, and that's what I've aspired to continue to do, and still have that community to fall into when we don't really know what's going on around the world, or
Yeah.
with the
Sometimes I think too, it was such a connection zone because sometimes you didn't know what you needed, but you walked out of those meetings, gatherings, conversations, just a feeling of elevation. You just didn't know what you needed, but by being in the presence of people that had similar issues, similar fights, similar challenges, but also were driven to want to support other women. I don't know, it just left me always feeling elevated, like
Mm.
this was good,
Yes.
and it's good to see that that continues today. And obviously you ladies are doing an excellent job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
What
It
I guess, what's, the dynamic, changes so quickly. 12 months ago, the needs of people were different to, if you think about it, and when COVID hit in 2020, we're now in 2026, when you think back to sort of, 10 years further back again, the needs were different. So what's the focus now? What are you most passionate about to make sure that you're supporting women in advice?
Yeah. I think even though, it has grown, I guess we've been a bit stagnant in terms of the numbers. Um, Although from a younger entry, new entrants, the numbers are creeping up from the stats that are coming in, which is positive.
Right.
But I think it's that middle part that is the challenging, where, women are still predominantly primary caregivers. They take time out to start families, they return part-time. And with the cost to be an advisor these days, being
Mm,
part-time is less attractive as a business proposition. So
mm.
unless you've established your own practice, and you've built the structure and the framework to be able to support like a part-time role, or you're in a larger business that has built that structure and framework. I think it is very hard to, as a new entrant, or a knowing that there are those obstacles that prevent full engagement in a role as a financial advisor.
Mm.
So, I think there is definitely, I'm still positive. I still think it's I still think it's a great career, a rewarding career. I still think there is plenty for, there's plenty of opportunity for women. And
Mm.
it's just about, I guess, getting that support in that, for new entrants or young advisors to be able to transition to that role of advisor.
Yeah, it's sort of we're quite good at sort of bringing, or we've improved the way we bring new market entrants in, and and help them establish a career in financial advice, whether it's as an advisor or as as in another role. And we're very good at nurturing those that are, I guess, have created incredible legacies within the
Yeah.
profession. But that
Middle.
piece in the middle, how do we help those women maintain their career? Because not everyone's born to own their own
Mm.
business. Not everyone wants to, and to be honest, if you're juggling, whether it's one child or, I was going to say 10, but nobody would be crazy enough for 10. But you know what I'm saying? It
Yes.
doesn't matter how many kids you've
Yeah.
got, operating a business on your own can be very challenging,
Mm.
particularly in those middle years, whatever those, they look like. And yeah, as a business proposition, it's hard. It's
Mm.
expensive. There's a real cost to business these days for an employed advisor, and it's finding that balance. So it would be wonderful to see how, as a profession, we can help those women
That's right.
remain in advice, because let's face it, we don't have enough financial advisors.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
if there's anyone that can understand a challenge, it's those ladies.
100%. Yeah. I think it's, coming in with that skill set as an advisor and then juggling, that caring, parent role, and then also caring for older parents, which comes into play as well. And,
Yes, I
and
completely understand that.
yeah, it's a very valuable skill set to have, and to not be able to take full advantage of as well is a shame. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there something coming up, something next? What's happening? I mean, there's always something, happening in the Inspire community. What's happening next for you guys?
So we are trying to get some research, commissioned essentially to try and solve this problem and get a real understanding of those obstacles, of those barriers, not only to entry in some points, but also what is it in terms of growth and continuing to grow the numbers of female, female advisors. I think, that's a sort of big passion, BHAG project for Inspire over the coming year and beyond. And then, off the back of that, really then being able to help, everyone, every stakeholder in, because it affects everyone in our profession. They're not just, the advisors, but product providers and all this, other stuff. So it's, although I am personally passionate about, getting more women advisors, it's also the other, equally important roles that help support advice. We couldn't do
Mm.
this in a vacuum. We actually absolutely need all the other support, in roles in the business to be able to do it effectively. Really building that out as well, for as career pathways, I think is important.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so yeah, so that would be really, really exciting to see. And
That's a big
we're
piece.
still, trying to work through how to make this happen in the best way possible. But watch this space. I think it'll be very exciting when we can.
I'm pretty sure with the people that are involved in Inspire that that's not an unrealistic, that's going to happen. That's a great goal. And the profession needs it, to be perfectly honest, as we said. So, I think any advocacy we can do in that space where we create something that can help leverage more women to stay in advice and not, opt out, because it's so much more difficult to come back in.
Mm.
And, often that's not an option for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think this will be very powerful, and I look forward to seeing that come to fruition. um, so I guess, we've touched on Inspire, and being a marketing girl,
Mhm.
I wanted to touch a little bit on your, brand melody, and obviously a little bit also about, all the things that you're doing in your capacity with Evalesco podcasts. You're the aged care, the face of the aged care side of thing. I'm seeing so much. You know, what's the thing that you love doing most when it comes to the marketing side of things? Like, I guess everyone has some assistance with these things these days, but is there something that you enjoy quite a lot?
I think I've always struggled with the sort of lens of, you have to sell yourself. I think that doesn't come very naturally to me. And um, it's not really my salt neck. It's not my primary driver at all. When it comes to pushing me and my brand or whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
So I've been very fortunate to have the support of the business in sort of developing that, and I guess curating that a little bit for me so that it still stays true to the things that are important to me, the values I hold, but it's someone else kind of driving it so that it's not, because that's something that if it was left up to my own devices would probably be, I'm the more the type to let someone else shine. So I think they're great at championing, because they and feeling like I have I guess overcome that imposter syndrome that I think a lot of women, particularly, face,
Yeah.
and to really, validate that, no, you know what you're talking about, you've worked
Yeah.
hard, you've built up that experience, don't sell yourself short. So I think
Yeah.
you having someone in your corner to do that has been, a key part of that, and just allowing me to talk and share what I, am passionate about or what really drives me.
Yeah. I think it's very obvious to me, as I said, that, you lead with intention and you're very values led. And I think, with new market entrants, it's important to tie, you know, your message, your persona, I guess, whether it's appearing on social media, joining a podcast, like, creating a voice for yourself, not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be on a social media perspective. It can be just turning up to an event. So I guess in that way, I feel like brand melody, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, I feel like you've led with that from the beginning.
Yes.
So, which
Very
seems
much.
to me your comfort space.
Yeah. I think, that is very true. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but in saying that, one of I think the good things about and having a mentor like Jeff,
Mm.
and a business like Evalesco has been around not, sort of pushing you outside that comfort zone, but without feeling like you're left to your own devices. So, you're on
Mm.
your own. If you fall, you kind of have to clean up the mess. So
Yeah.
it's very much a supported, no, it's a gentle nudge and going, I don't know why you have doubts. You're 100% capable. So just go and do it, and whatever happens, we'll support you.
Yeah.
So having that kind of I guess safety net or support and but also that push is
Yes.
really what is needed to at each stage when you're kind of thinking, oh, this seems a bit scary or a little bit, I've never done it before, or how is this going to turn out? It really does help that that progression.
Yeah, I think just the reassurance that, like, whilst it might be scary, as you say, you've got the safety net.
Mm,
I think, building your personal brand is so much, it genuinely comes from within. And, sometimes we just need the right people around us to help us step into that.
mm,
So yeah, which kind of leads me to finalist for Holistic Advisor of the Year, New South Wales last year, Women in Finance Award, like, faces popping up and the awards programs from last year. Was that sort of something you felt like was just about, growth, or was it just you challenging yourself? What was the decision behind that?
Yeah, I was very much nomination. I got nominated, which was really quite a lovely a thing to receive, to have someone's confidence that I was, you know, worthy of that recognition.
Mm.
And as you know, I've done a few of the award submissions now, and what I find really, really quite rewarding about that process is about that self-reflection, that time to really kind of stop and think about what it is, like how have I gotten to, so similar to this podcast, giving that opportunity, which I think is so valuable to, we don't
Yeah.
do it enough, to really think about what has, how have I reached here, and what's really important and to me, and then I guess that helps you set the stage for, the next steps as well. So it's been really nice to do that process, and then to again get the recognition of it, has been really, for someone who will always have a little bit of imposter syndrome. It's very much great to have a bit of validation to show that you are doing, you're doing some good things and you're on the right path.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I think we all suffer from that melee of imposter syndrome. Or I remember sitting in an Inspire event in Cairns once, and I think it was Dr. Gemma Munro. I
Yeah.
think was the lady's name, and she talked about the lizard. The lizard
Right?
brain,
Yes.
syndrome. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think she's literally talking about every single person in this room right now. You know, you could literally see everybody going, yep.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
So, okay, you have, oh gosh, when I think about how much you've really encompassed, from then till now, I'm like scratching my head thinking, oh, what could possibly be next? um, what's ahead? What drives you?
Yeah. I think it's still the same thing. So, you know, for me as an advisor, for Evalesco as a business, it's really about being able to help more Australians get really good advice and, live well fulfilled lives, and not just in the wealthy space. It's the healthy and the happy, which, is so key to all we do. Wealth without health or happiness is really meaningless.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
really empowering our clients to get the outcomes in those spaces is where we, our passion lies. And so being able to provide that for more people is what we want to do. So in my role, besides sort of seeing clients, it's also developing the team and helping, young advisors to grow in their spaces and the types of clients that they want to serve,
Yeah.
and really accomplish that as well, from a business perspective. But then I think on a broader scale, it's continuing that across the profession as much as we can,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
helping as many people as we can possibly help.
More Australians getting more advice
That's
or
right.
getting access to advice is the first
Mm,
part.
that's it.
um, so we have something else in common, Melody. We both mums to two daughters. I have two daughters and you have two daughters. So mine are significantly older than yours. But I want to just touch on this because we've just mentioned about the whole concept of, more Australians getting access to advice or seeking advice, whatever it may be. You've built an incredible career already. We've just heard all about it, while also raising a family. And I'm sure you've had plenty of support and help along the way. So I get that. But, you know, how has that shaped the way you think about money and advice yourself? I mean, having a family, I mean, we've literally talked about, women opting out because it's not a good career option when you've got children, or it potentially
Mm.
can be a not a good career option, for you. So how has that shaped the way you think about money and advice?
It's definitely brings a different perspective to pre-kids for sure. And having, and knowing sort of the motivations around, okay, well, your priorities do naturally shift. what then becomes the, the focus, or what are we aspiring to bring in for, the kind of life that we want our family to have.
Mm.
Um, Marrying that with, I guess, my role as an advisor is around, I'm very fortunate that I am I guess in our family, I'm the primary income earner, and so I have a lot of support from my husband as the primary carer. Um, so I'm able to kind of step out, not on the coal face of parenting as such, um,
You never
which I
really get the chance to do that.
that's true. I mean, it's still, it's not a complete role reversal. It's 100%
It's a
still
shared
involved. Yeah.
responsibility.
But it does, I do, it does allow me to have a little bit more freedom with my time than, if I were on, having sort of to juggle primary caregiving as well, or,
Yeah.
you know, um, but we are fine. I find, and this is, we still as a society struggle with a father as a primary caregiver. I still naturally get all the phone calls and all the email correspondence, and it is a bit of, you're having to, fight that a little bit along the way.
Yeah, definitely haven't quite got the, society shifting with us on that one.
No, right. And so I think you have a little bit of, women, even if you are in the, it's fortunate to have that support, it's still challenging, and it's still very much a juggle,
Mm,
to try and balance out those responsibilities, and you want to be there, especially when kids are young. You want to, and so I'm really mindful around
absolutely.
the time that I spend, that it is, and I'm very quite clear and strict on my boundaries around that. So when I'm at work, it's work focused, but when I'm at home, I'm with the kids, I'm present. It's not,
Yes.
and being very clear, and sticking to that is important
Yeah.
the quality has to be there.
Yeah. You leave your cape at the door when you walk in. I want to talk to you because obviously, you've talked about sort of the very holistic approach about health and wealth and all that sort of thing. I wanted to mention a little bit about, obviously being a financial advisor, um, you know, you're bringing up two young ladies that may or may not, need to be very financially independent themselves. And, we encourage all people to do that, not just women. But what are the key lessons or values around money that, even though your children are young, that you already find that you're trying to embed in your children?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think we all have, our money stories and our money experiences from childhood, and the way money is talked about really sticks with you, and your behavior around money, and your sort of approach, and your mental framing of it is tied to it very intrinsically. So I am very mindful when I'm talking about, it's not something to be avoided, talking about it with the kids.
Mm,
And we try and avoid like negative language around money. So,
mm,
it is a tool, and it's about being mindful in how we, use it. And that
mm,
that mindfulness is what I think is key. So,
mm,
what you spend on is different for, like, what's important to spend on is different for everybody. So
mm,
I think it's being really clear around, sticking to what's important to you, and making it that, making your behavior match that. So
mm,
yeah, it's really, so that's the, when, with my girls now, they're quite young, 8 and 6, but, for them, having a book budget is how I sort of start talking about money. and it really gives them sort of, okay, well, this is how much you have to spend each month on books. If you don't spend it, it banks up for the next month, and and then it then really gives them the intention. Okay, well, is this something that I want to spend my money on, or save for something that I really want? And just starting those conversations and early to help build that behavior, and so that they're not building that negative relationship with money when they become financially independent.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, when I think about the number of times whether you're just in the shops and you're witnessing a child pointing and going, "But I want it."
Mm. Yes.
And the poor mother or the poor father is standing there going, "But,"
Yeah. Mm.
"that's $30," and we live in a time where you and I know and understand cash,
Mm.
but, and obviously credit,
Yeah.
but, as we move more and more towards a cashless society, it's very hard for children. They just see us pick up our phone or
Tap.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
or grab our watch and go tap. They
Yeah,
don't
right.
understand that that actually has a monetary value at
Mm.
all. Like,
Yeah.
not at all. Like, well, dad or mum or nanny or pa, they
Yeah.
just tap their phone, you know.
That's it.
And that makes it very challenging to teach, yeah, particularly young children, but even as they're coming into preteen and teen, that there's an impact, that there's a consequence to that.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't. I mean, once upon a time, as you say, you got pocket money, and the pocket money was for this, and if you wanted to go to McDonald's or a movie or whatever, it was the pocket money, sort of thing. Now it's just completely different.
Yes.
So I genuinely feel for the parents of today. Um, okay, so I want to just have a quick question around, the holistic advice piece. Like, when I think about advice, and we've touched on this already to some degree, now to what it was like 5, 10, 20 years ago, we didn't have the regulation we have today, all those things. Like, where do you see the whole advice piece evolving to in the next 5 to 10 years?
It that's a very interesting question. I think there will be I think it will continue to evolve in, as technology evolves, as AI potentially helps plug some of that knowledge gap, or well, not knowledge gap, but accessibility of advice to more people.
Mm,
I think the types of advice will, sort of diverge even further, because you will be able to service in very different ways to what
mm,
is a traditional, sort of financial advice relationship. So I think that's exciting in a lot of ways, because it just means that there's more opportunities to think about how we, deliver and give advice to people. Um, in terms of, and I think as well, and this is, from a holistic, we were talking about values-based advice, going back, and now we're sort of moving past that even more, and been developing that concept. And I think that's really just going to continue to grow, and the role that we play as advisors is going to deepen even further.
mm.
And especially if you can harness that collaborative approach with other professionals, and really building, a good team around your client, that's just gonna, accelerate even further.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, the behavioral, advice piece will, of understanding that behavioral um, approach to money is going to become quite important, because that's obviously a big gap with the technology. And I think you're right. I think that's going to be where that, relationship, that bond, I think to some degree we trust technology probably overly too much, a little too much. But in other things, we're just not quite ready to trust fully. So we're happy to use our banking apps, and we're happy to do our budgeting apps and things like that. But I think when it comes to that holistic approach, I'm basically putting Jenny's life in Melody's hands.
Mm.
I want to know that you understand me, and that I don't know that that's necessarily where the technology is at. But in 5 to 10 years' time, who knows? Who
Mm,
knows?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let's hope for more financial advisors in the meantime. um, so I guess we've touched on a little bit on the women in advice. I guess what more could we do to encourage women not just to seek advice, but also to consider advice as a career option?
Hmm. I think a lot of women do downplay their capabilities in more tech or numbers, money. I think it's socialized a little bit that, and the research has shown women do. There's a confidence gap.
Mm,
Women are a little bit more conservative. They want to know as much as they can before they take any action. They are I guess for them finding a right a professional partner to help them who understands
mm,
them, I think is really key to boosting that confidence to take some action. Um, so if it's anything, it's saying, well, we build it, saying you don't have to be the whiz with numbers necessarily to be a good advisor. It
mm.
absolutely is a role that and we're more that most women are capable of fulfilling. And it's really about identifying and recognizing that their capabilities extend more than what they might initially believe. Um,
Yeah.
so even just building up that basic financial literacy and financial confidence as a starting point, I think is would be so powerful in sort of unlocking that concept or that belief in themselves to go, actually, you know what, I can do this, and this is where I can add a lot of value and
Yeah.
help a lot of people.
So what's next for Melody?
um, I've been fortunate that, as much as it might seem like by design, my career has been somewhat driven by what is it that I can, what is it that I don't know that I should know, or what more can I do in this space? And it's really being, set in what the challenges I'm finding currently, and I don't see that part aspect really changing at all. So I think it'll just be, continuing to push, continuing to learn. I recently trained as a collaborative professional, which means that I can assist in collaborative matters in estate planning for contested estates, or if you're, preventing, trying to prevent a contest, a will contest, being able to, I see so much power in getting those conversations out early and, working with the family dynamics. We're in a unique position to, we have these conversations with our clients. We can recognize, okay, look, this might be an issue, it might not be an issue now, but it could be an issue coming up, and let's get it on the table. Let's get the people together. Let's try and have a productive conversation so that if something happens, you're not losing family members to, family relationships. You're not sort of putting things to chance, or, that she'll be right attitude. You're really giving them confidence that, that what's important to them is protected and honored. And I think that's a really powerful position to be in, and to be able to, again, have outcomes and help towards solutions that will solve those problems and, generally help everybody. We're not, that value there is so undersold, and to recognize that and be able um, to push for it is yeah, the next step, I think.
Wow, very end to end. I don't know how you find 5 minutes. um, okay, last question. Looking back, we've talked about mentors, and leadership, all different things, but was there one pivotal moment that really shaped your journey that that you can share with us?
It definitely would be the moment I joined Evalesco, I would say.
Mm.
Because I mean, to be fair, there was two, because the first is the first step into financial planning, which I would never have gotten if I hadn't met my first mentor, advisor. And then the second was, yeah, that transition into Evalesco. And I think, it was almost, they, Marshall and Jeff came to us and said, look, we heard, the advisor back then was Sally, her health wasn't good. How can we help? How can we support you? And I think that, aligning our values in the same pathway was really good. So I think it was, if anything, it's leading with what's excuse me, important to you, what's true to you and your values. And I think being able to then be supported and to flourish and grow in that and push outside your comfort zone, and you're capable, not to have someone sort of back you in your capabilities. That has been such a driver to my growth. I don't think I would have had that same sort of experience without it.
Yeah. Well, it definitely feels like it was a game changer moment for you, given how much you've packed into, I think you said 13 years. I'm, I'm like, oh, what's taking me so long? But yeah, I can see how that has, it was definitely a pivot point because of the way it's impacted your career and supported you through your different career changes. So I'm kind of excited to see what's next. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be more of the same, but even bigger and better. But, I'll be that person standing and cheering you on from the sidelines and watching with enthusiasm. So I want to thank you wholeheartedly for sharing your journey with us and your perspective on things. It's actually really been quite rewarding listening to all of those, those thoughts, those things that are behind the scenes that, we often don't see or hear. And it's been such a thoughtful and inspiring conversation. So I genuinely want to thank you. And it's so lovely to see you again. So thank you very much, Melody.
Always a pleasure, Jen, and thanks for having me on.
No worries. We'll be touching base again soon, no doubt. Thanks, Melody. Thanks for tuning in to the Genesis Gems podcast. This season marks 20 years of Genesis, and it's all about reflecting on where we've come from, recognising the momentum we've built, and imagining what's next. If today's conversation sparks something for you, make sure to subscribe and share it with a colleague. And if you're ready to explore your then now next story, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep turning your ideas into reality.